how I kind of do notes for math class. So the first thing I want you to do is kind of write with me and follow along. And if the video's too fast, you can pause it and write to keep up with me, and then just press play when you're ready to go again. So this will be page 1 in your math notebook. At the top in this margin, I'd like you to write NS3. That's the standard that we're talking about in the 6th grade, number systems. The 3rd standard, NS3, is talking about adding and subtracting decimals. So I'd like you to write that at the top. You can put a box around it. I like to use 2 different colors for my notes, so I might use black and I might use purple just to give color. I'd prefer that you take your notes in color as well. So when I'm using colors, I'd like you to switch colors. Again, if it's too fast, you can pause it as you go. So the first example I want to do with adding and subtracting decimals. The example problem, I'm going to write it sideways on purpose. So that's your example problem. It is 3.026 plus 4.7 plus 1.38. And I'm saying point, and you could say like 4 and 7/10, but point is okay for this. So in order to add and subtract decimals, you need to line up your decimals. So we have 3 numbers here, so I'm going to put a space on purpose on this line, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to rewrite 3.026. Notice my numbers are in the spaces. I'm writing in the spaces in between the blue lines. If we're going to add 3 numbers, we have to have the decimals lined up. So I'm going to put all the decimals there. 4.7, the 4 would go under the 3. The 7 goes under the 0. And then you can fill in these additional spots with zeros. You don't have to, but that place value will help you. Then the 1 would be under the 4, and then your 3, 8 would go under your 7 and your 0. And then again, you can fill in another 0 here. I like to put the plus sign so that I know what I'm doing with my operation, and it's ready to go. Before I go ahead and add this, I just want to put a star here. Anytime I put a star in our notes, it's just kind of important. It's always important with decimals that you estimate to check, is my answer reasonable or not? So is our answer going to be reasonable or not? So a quick way to do that is to just look at your whole numbers. So I have the whole number 3, I have 4, and 1. So if I add 3 plus 4, that's 7, plus 1 more, my answer should be around 8. So that's just kind of me estimating. As I go ahead and solve the problem, I'm going to add going down. 6 plus 0, and 0 is 6. 2 and 8 is 10. Carry the 1 up. I know 7 and 3 is 10, and I got to add 1 more to that, so it's 11. So I put the 1 here, carry the 1 up. 1 and 3 makes 4, and another 4 is 8, plus 1 more is 9. And your decimal just goes straight down into your answer. And then I like to make my notes and my problems nice and neat. So I box in my answer, made it really nice and neat. All the numbers were lined up. 9.106. Now I'm looking to see, is 8 reasonable? 9 is pretty close to 8, but if I would have got like 91.06, 91 is not close to 8, but 9 is. So that's just kind of showing, yep, we did a good job and our answer is correct. The next example problem, I'm just going to kind of put a little line here in our notes that I want you to write down. Is going to be a subtraction problem. So the example problem is 15.7 minus 8.923. So if I want to estimate just off to the side, I could look at is 15 minus 8. So maybe over here, 15 minus 8, I know that's 7. So this is just kind of my little star out to the side. Is my answer going to be close to 7? Now when I set this up, there's some confusion about which number you write first. So you're having 15.7 and you're taking 8 away from it. So when you're writing this, again, I'd like you to leave a space here and come down a line. 15.7. Now these decimals have to be lined up coming straight down. We are going to be subtracting. This is kind of tricky. Like, how do I write this in? The 8 is going to go under the 5. The 9 should go under the 7. Then you have this 2 and this 3. So this is kind of hard here because you're like, oh, I need to put zeros here. Yes, but a mistake that kids often make at this point is they take 3 and they subtract 0 going up, and then they come back down and say, oh, that's 3. And then 2 minus 0, oh, that's 2. But that's not right. You notice how it's going up. That's not what we were doing here. We have 0, and we're trying to take 3 away from that, and you can't. So this is where you look over here, and you can't borrow from another 0. So you have to borrow from this 7. And I'm going to switch colors here so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to borrow from this 7. It becomes a 6. This 0 becomes a 10, and you borrow from it, so it's now 9. Notice I can still read my numbers. I've written them small, but I can still read them. Then this 0 becomes 10. So every time you borrow, you're giving it 10. 10, you can take 3 away from that. That's 7. 9, you can take 2 away from that. That's 7. 6, can we take 9 away from that? We cannot. So we need to come over and borrow from the 5. It becomes a 4, and the 6 becomes 16. Again, I can still read all of my numbers. 16, I can take 9 away and get 7. My decimal is going to come straight down in my answer. I have 4, but I cannot take 8 away. So you can borrow from the 1, it becomes a 0, and your 4 becomes 14. Again, I can still read my numbers. 14, and you take 8 away, you get 6. So it's 6.777, pretty close to 7. Yes. So that's our next example. Our math notes on page 1, I want you to draw a line here. I'm going to give you 2 more examples of adding and subtracting decimals. I'm going to move this up so you can see as I'm writing. First example, again, I'm writing it sideways on purpose, is 14.3 plus 16. And I'm giving 16 because that is a tricky number. So when you're thinking about estimating at first, over to the side here, I might think, well, 14 is my whole number and 16 is a whole number. You want to think money when you have a number without a decimal. How would I write $16?
Can you,
16, and you estimate 6 plus 4 is 10, carry the 1, and 3 ones makes 30. So we're looking to see that when we add our decimals that it's somewhere around 30. So over here again, I'm going to skip a line on purpose. I'm going to write 14.3, and if the decimals are lined up, how would I write 16? Well, if I'm thinking $16, you're not going to put it over here because that'd be 16 cents. $16 would be under the 14 with your 0, 0. You don't have to put the zeros, but that's how I'd like you to think about it. When you have a whole number, think money. So then you're ready to add 0, 3, 4, and 6 makes 10. Carry the 1, and you're back to 30. So does this estimate and check out? 30, I like to answer with a box. Does that check with my estimation? It is very close. The last example I would like to do, I'm just going to put it over here on the right, is a subtraction problem. This example is 14.75 minus 6.9264. And on purpose, I'm giving this big number to you. So which one goes first? That tends to be a problem that some kids forget. The first number, 14, goes first. I'm going to skip a line so I have room to write 14.75, spacing out my numbers. Then if the decimals are lined up, the 6 goes under the 4, the 9 is under the 7, our 2 is under the 5, then we have the 6, 4. So you have to put zeros here that you can subtract. A common error that kids make when subtracting is they go up, 4 minus 0, oh, 4, 6 minus 0, oh, 6. But that is not correct. We don't go up when subtracting, we're trying to go down. I'm going to change colors so that we can see that we have to borrow here. You can't take 4 away from 0, and you can't borrow from 0, so you come over to the 5. Cross it out nice and neat and make it a 4. Now you can make this 10. Take away from the 10, it's now 9, and this 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 4 is 6. 9 minus 6 is 3. 4 minus 2 is 2. You cannot take 9 away from 7, so you need to borrow. This 4 becomes a 3, and 7 becomes 17. 17 minus 9 is 8. Your decimal comes straight down. 3, you can't take 6 away, so you need to borrow. The 1 becomes a 0, and your 3 becomes 13. Notice that I've written all those numbers in here nice and neat, and you can see those. 13 minus 6 is 7. So when you're estimating to see, is this even close to the answer I should have? Well, if you have a whole number 14, and this is 6, or 6.9 is pretty close to 7. 14, if you take away 6, that's 8. Is 7.8 pretty close to 8? Yes, it is. Now, if you had like an answer like 78.236, maybe your decimal was in the wrong spot. 78 is not close to 8, but 7.8 is pretty close to 8. So that's it for your notes, or practice problems is what I like to put in our notes for page 1. You're going to have a homework assignment to just kind of practice this, kind of like practice makes perfect. So I want you to write it here at the bottom. The homework you're going to have is a worksheet, so I'm going to abbreviate that worksheet, WS. It's called Practice 1-5. That's what the worksheet's called. I only want you to do the odds, so I want you to do numbers 1 through 19 odds only. So really, you're only doing problems 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, and 19. So just practice those at home. You can refer to this video, these notes to help you. This is the worksheet you're going to get to practice at home to work on this skill, adding and subtracting decimals.